Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Miller's Military Moments. I'm your host, Jason Miller, Master Sergeant retired. And as always, thanks everybody for joining us. Another exciting episode, another educational, informational transition story from a retired lieutenant colonel. And, you know, we don't really talk about ranks and positions a lot, especially after we've transitioned, because one of the things that I learned through the transition is that when you are out, nobody cares about your rank or your accolades or positions for the most part. But I choose, to recognize Colonel Martin's rank because he has some interesting challenges through his own transition and that he's going to share with us today. And I think that it's really important to know that if a lieutenant colonel has challenges in his own right, getting certain things, approved, or even knowing certain things, then we all know everybody below is also having some of those same challenges. So a great episode today, lots to learn, a lot of tips and resources, and really just going to be some great stuff today. So thanks everybody for joining us. Really quick, if you haven't found me, the best place to find me is my website, millersmilitarymoments.com. You can find all the episodes there, plus links to any of the podcast listening apps, but you can listen to the shows right from there. There's also a resources page that you can click on that has veteran-owned businesses that I support. They're not paid advertisements. I actually support them and know them personally, and so you can check their links out on there, and also some of my favorite podcasts on there, plus videos from my time deployed, different things through different theaters. You can check that out too, and of course the podcast and blog. So check us out there, millersmilitarymoments.com. And now let's get into the show. So Dave, thanks for joining us. Appreciate you taking the time to share your stories, which are just really incredibly valuable to a lot of people. So thanks for coming on the show, man. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, Jason. I'm so glad to be here. Anything I can do to help, promote the messaged transition and, provide lessons learned that, may help at least one person out there and hopefully a lot more. I'm happy to do it. So thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. Anytime, really. And your message is the same as mine. If there's anything that I can do to just help one person learn, from my experiences or give them some information I know, man, I'm willing to do it.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It's really cool. And, we've got a lot of challenges with our veterans transitioning. And we've got a lot of resources though. There's a lot of cool, awesome programs where they can really set themselves up for success for transitioning. Many of us are still trying to figure out what we want to do when we grow up, when we leave the military.
Yeah.
Right. So, but there really are a lot of resources and, opportunities, and that you and I were talking about the challenges of learning about them and learning about them in enough time to use them.
That's right.
So let's start with where you are now, and then, what are you doing? And then we'll kind of back up to there. So where are you now, and what kind of job are you doing?
So right now I'm back working for the government. I'm still serving the Army just as a civilian now. I'm working at Fort Eustis at the U.S. Army Training and Doctrine Command. And I work in a training and leader development role. So I really enjoy what I'm doing there, working with a great team, got a great leadership structure there. And that's really one of the reasons why I wanted to go back, is because of the relationships that I had built at that place from a previous assignment too. So, working with a great team of military and civilian professionals. And of course, many of our civilians that work there were former military as well. So it's just a great atmosphere. Really loving it. Loving where we live. My wife and daughter and my daughter's getting ready to start her senior year of high school. So everything just worked out for us very well, and just kind of came together. But it came together with a lot of planning and a lot of help. So I don't want to make it sound like it was easy, uh, but yeah. So really enjoying what we're doing, and I'm loving it, loving life.
Which is awesome. And several parts of that stick out to me, and it's the team that you wanted to be a part of and that you are a part of, and which creates a culture that you wanted to be a part of. And something that I really focused on during my transition was when I had an opportunity to talk to people at a organization, was I asked two things right off the bat. What's your culture like?
Yeah.
And I'm talking exactly about what you just said, that the team aspect, does people help each other, or are they quick to say that ain't my job? And then the second one was PTO. How much PTO do you get?
Always
But
important.
that's right. That's right. Because when we go from 30 days earning 30 days a leave a year
Yeah.
to, maybe 2 weeks at the most, it can be really important. So that was me, but the culture is what you're really talking about. And so that's a great lesson for our teammates out there that are going through this. Is that's one of the things that we really want you to focus on.
Yeah.
Is that it is figuring out an organization that has the culture that fits you, right?
That's right. And sometimes you may, no, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, and it's not easy, and
No.
and you got to do your work, and you got to figure it out. And so it kind of starts with, what is it that you want to do?
Yeah.
And it may not be the thing that you want to do, but through that process, you may end up finding that organization that has the culture, and you're like, well, I don't know what they do, but I want to be on that team, and let's go. So
yeah, and for me, kind of coming back to the Army, it was, I obviously knew about the culture, right? So it was easy to kind of step back into that culture. It's familiar. But for a lot of our service members that are transitioning out there, who may choose not to go back into the government, which is fine. I mean, that's their choice. The challenge of learning about and trying to find a culture that they believe that they can fit into, or that might fit their lifestyle, can be a little daunting sometimes, and it takes a little bit more work to discover that.
I agree. And I want to take a minute to talk about that thought concept of going back and working for the government. And because there's a thought out there among a lot of our teammates that, well, okay, I'll just go be that grumpy dude over at CIF and kick everybody's stuff back because they did it to me and I'm just angry, and then I'll just double dip and get, paid, or I'll go do some menial thing. Like that's not what you're talking about, going back and working for the government.
Right.
All of us, anyone that's even gotten that 4, 6, 10 years, I don't care, has skills and that are of value and can help a government organization. So I would challenge anyone out there that thinks that they want to work for the government, and actually probably not think of it in that manner, but think of finding that culture and that team. And it could be with the government, but think outside the box of those positions that you look at on USA Jobs.
That's right.
I think is some of my thoughts.
Yeah. And, particularly if, you want to be in a supervisory or a non-supervisory role, or, let's say you want to try something that's a little different, that's outside your career field, even if it's within the government, but you still have those skill sets that match, that new particular career field. So, don't hesitate to try it. I mean, opportunities are there. You just gotta be able to find them.
Absolutely.
I think it takes work, but you can do it.
Yes, absolutely. And we're going to talk about some of that work that goes into finding, those jobs and positions. But I just want to hit on one more thing before we leave this topic. And, you had to kind of make some decisions with your family.
Yeah.
You mentioned your daughter getting ready to start her senior year. And I think that's important. I think, some of our teammates don't put enough thought into all of those things. And it's okay especially at that point. Let's just say you're plus 18 years. No. Let's just say it doesn't even matter. You're the last 24 months of your current contract, whether it be a retirement or not. It's okay to think about what's best for you and your family.
Yeah, absolutely.
So anybody that is serving right now has raised their right hand and said, I want to serve and volunteer during a time of war.
Yeah.
So you've done enough, every one of you. So think about all of those things and don't feel guilty for putting it in the thought of, well, do we move one more time to take this job? And then now my kid's got to go to a different school. And, don't be guilted into anything like that if that's not what's best for you and your family. So I'm really excited and glad to hear that, y'all made that decision of, hey, this is what's best for our family, and we're going to retire and we're going to, stay here. And, you mentioned in the pre-show that who knows, this may not be forever, but it was what was right for you all at the moment. And it's working out very well right now. So that's good to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. And everybody just has to think about, what's important to them. It could be the job, it could be the location, it could be family. For me and for my family, for me personally, family was number one. Family ruled everything, all my decisions, and what was best for us. And so, when it came time for me to start to think about that decision, I knew that the assignment that I was in, which turned out to be the last one, was going to be my last one. And I thought well ahead of time and, had that conversation with the decision makers and said, hey, look, I'm thinking about, we definitely want to stay here, but I'm thinking about maybe staying a little longer in uniform if I can, because, by the time my current assignment ends, my daughter will be in her junior year of high school. And my wife and I talked about this all the time. We're like, hey, look, we want our daughter, to finish the same high school, be in the same high school all 4 years. When kids are little and you're moving around all the time, when they're younger, at least in my experience for our daughter, I can't speak for everybody out there, but she seemed a lot more resilient when it came time to moving and leaving those friends behind and having to make new friends. But once you get older, those relationships become a lot more important. And then, my wife's family lives here in Virginia too. And our goal had always been to stay close to them as well. Because there's just so many other factors you have to think about. And so for us, the decision was easy. And when the Army said, hey, look, your family can stay there. If you want to stay beyond your current assignment, we can send you away for a year on an unaccompanied tour. But so that's the deal. I'm like, well, you just made my decision for me. So, and it was the easiest decision I could have ever made because, my family was the focus, and that's what was important to me.
Yeah. And that's good. I mean, that was, it was your focus that was important to you, and you were able to follow through and make sure that you were able to get your daughter through high school in the same spot, retire, and then, move into, the job where you're in. So that's good. So let's back up in a little bit of time.
Okay.
And you're in uniform, and so some of those discussions have had, and now you're going to commit to retiring. Are you, at what point, what's the timeline or the time frame, I guess, that you started to talk about transition and plan the transition? There's dates that people throw out there, 12 months, 24 months. What was yours like?
So my wife and I have had the discussion about when I was going to leave the Army, really from the beginning of when I got here, or when I came in the Army. And really it was, when I first started out 23 years ago or so, it was like, hey, I'm going to do my 20 and get out. That was the extent of our conversation. That was my plan. Right.
Right.
And then as we got closer and closer, I'm year 15 now, and I'm thinking, okay, in the next 5 years or so, I think we're going to hang it up. And so our goal had always been to stay to retire in Virginia. And so we tried to do the maneuvering as much as possible to try to get us in or as close to Virginia as possible, and working with the Army to do that. And thankfully for us, we were very fortunate. They were very accommodating. So, my second to last assignment was in North Carolina, Fort Bragg. And then, I worked very hard to try to come back to Virginia because I had those conversations with Army Human Resources Command to talk about, hey, I think I'm going to retire after this next assignment. And we want to retire in Virginia. Can you help me out? And so when it came closer to time, they really did. But my wife and I knew that once we got here, that this was it. Now, I wanted to try to stay in uniform, as I said, through my daughter's high school years, but that just didn't happen. And so, like I said, I made that decision, and it felt like kind of like a huge weight came off my shoulders because, and I've heard this described from other veterans as well. It's like, hey, once I'd made that decision and said the words, I'm going to retire or I'm going to transition or whatever that is, it literally feels like a weight off your shoulders. And it really did feel, because I didn't really believe it at first, but it actually felt that way. It felt so good because we were in the right spot at the right time, right circumstances. And then it's like, okay, how do I go about transitioning? What are the mechanics of this now? Right. And you talk to people who've been through it, like, oh, 6 months out, you'd be, no problem. Okay. 12 months out. I knew I had to do at least 18 to 24 months. I had to start the process that far in advance because there was just so much I didn't know that I knew I didn't know. And I wanted to make sure I got through all of that in enough time to make my transition successful.
So 24 months, you were starting to really figure out what that stuff was. So what, create your checklist and be like, okay, what do I not know here? And starting to figure out, that's what you're saying. 24 months out, you really started to work on the mechanics of it.
So I actually started 18 months ahead of time. Although 24 months is preferred. I started 18 months and I just went over to the Soldier for Life Transition Assistance Office and, said, hey, I'm going to transition at the end of 2020. And they hooked me up with a counselor and I started the process right there. I got signed up for classes. I learned when the 5-day courses that you have to take took place and then just picked a set of dates. And then really from that point, I started communicating with my leadership. Here's my plan. I have made the decision to retire.
Mm-hmm.
I know I'm going to do it within this amount of time. I know that there are certain things that are out there that I want to take advantage of. I just don't know what they are yet. But I'm just giving you, full notice here that this is what I intend to do. And so that was kind of the start of that. And then it was just drinking from the fire hose from there. And then, learning and listening and a lot of discovery learning too along the way.
Yeah. I mean, so, right. 24 months is ideal. 18, you can do it. I started around 18 as well.
Yeah.
And then drinking through the fire hose, same thing. I went down to SFL tap and then just try to figure it out. And then, so, but two things. So, I had, Luke Velmer on, last week and, he was sharing his transition story, which was, one of the most challenging I've ever heard. I mean, at one point he was out of the Army, but still working and not getting paid according to finance.
Oh,
and
wow.
then, right. And then back in and right. So, but one of the key things, one of my new favorite phrases, and you really just said it without saying this, sometimes being the dumbest person in the room is the best way to learn.
Yes.
So if you take advantage of that, of knowing that you don't know, ask a million questions, you're going to learn a whole lot.
Well, and that's the thing too, is, kind of a variation off of that same thing. I had to be smart enough to know where I was stupid. And I was stupid in a lot of areas when it came to transition. So
right.
It was just asking questions and just talking to people who've been through it and asking questions throughout the actual transition events and courses and classes and stuff that I was going through and learning from others, really kind of years before that too, but just in drips and drabs. But within that 18-month window, like you said, man, it's like asking tons of questions. And I'm a person who naturally asks a lot of questions. And sometimes people find that frustrating, but I mean, right. I have to know like the details of how things work, so I can understand them better and articulate them to others. So that's kind of how I operate.
Yeah, and that's a good way to operate. And I think just that really is a good point for our listeners and those veterans out there and active duty service members. Just listen, check your ego at the door, ask any and every question, and so that you can learn. Because I'm here to tell you right now, and Dave, you'll say the same thing. There's so much that you don't know.
Yeah.
So it's okay. Just check the ego and just, learn and ask and stuff. So when did you get connected to LinkedIn? At what point did that kind of start becoming a thing for you?
So I had a LinkedIn profile probably about 6 months or so before I even started the transition process, because, as I start to ask questions of people and the things that they, did well and kind of learn their lessons, you hear a lot about LinkedIn and networking, right? Like networking is the thing. And, you really learn about the power of networking and really that it is a thing. But I had a profile. I didn't really do anything with it. I just established one. I just had, I think I had a picture of me in a uniform, which I learned is not the thing you want to do if you're transitioning out.
Right.
People have that, that DA photo that they have.
Oh yeah.
With the blue background, and it's chopped down so that you can't see the personal information up in the top corner. That's the photo you normally see. But so I started about 6 months ahead, didn't really do anything with it. And then once I got into the transition assistance process, and started having guest speakers come in and talk exclusively about LinkedIn and about networking and what it can do for you and why it's important, that's when I really started to try to build the network, cultivate my profile, learn as much as I could about it from subject matter experts, and really kind of get it to where I have it now, which is not necessarily perfect, but it's 100 miles from where I started, 2 years ago.
Yeah, that's good. Excellent point and lesson for anybody out there that's in that position. I was the same way. Got the profile, and then people connected me to others that were really knowledgeable about how to set that profile up. And this is the great thing about shows like this, and it's like, listen, I'm gonna put links to anything that we mentioned on the blog post on my website, so that you can go right to this episode and you can click on, LinkedIn, I'll have Dave's profile up there and all that stuff. So being exposed to those people and the networking is really incredible. And I was hesitant. I definitely was hesitant after I created my profile. Mm-hmm. And, because I was questioning the value of it.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal. Anyway, I read the statistics, and, I think it was like 80% of jobs are found from somebody that was direct referral.
Yeah.
May not have been somebody in the company, but it was a direct referral. And so that's true. I mean,
it's not just about building connections. It's about building meaningful connections.
Yes.
And so, people want to tend to, build up the number of connections they have. Hey, I got over 500. Hey, that's great. But how many of them do you actually communicate with?
Right.
And, learn so much about not just LinkedIn, but, there are organizations and companies out there, they use these platforms to recruit and communicate, not just LinkedIn, but Twitter, Snapchat, and all these things. This is how they're reaching today's population, because that's how they communicate, right? So, I learned a very hard lesson very early, and, with the networking piece, particularly with the LinkedIn. And it was a work in progress. Matter of fact, I had an informational interview when I first started out. I had no expectations of going to this company. I just wanted to try out my interview skills. And I was interviewed by the CEO of the company. It's a local company here. I'm not going to say the name, but they do a lot of defense contracting. And we went through the interview, and at the end of it, he's like, okay, I'm gonna do a little bit of coaching here, just kind of help you out. He goes, I looked at your LinkedIn profile, and you only have like a couple of folks, and here's how you have it set up. But here's where I think you need to move on with this. And really, things like that, opportunities like that, where you're just, linking up with somebody who you're not expecting a job from them, but you're just kind of trying to get advice, really helped me out a lot and really kind of opened my eyes to, wow, this is important. This is what people are doing now to reach potential recruits and potential, people for their organization that might fit their culture, like we talked about before.
Yeah, I agree. It's making those connections. Informational interviews is just, I did several, and they were huge.
Yeah.
Got definitely a lot of constructive criticism. A couple of them hurt my feelings, and but it was okay because I learned from it.
Absolutely.
So that's another big tip. Like, listen, get started early.
Yeah.
Get on the LinkedIn, and informational interviews. And you can learn how to do all these things through people that you meet on LinkedIn. We're not going to go through all the details of those things, but I know I'm going to probably speak for you, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. Both of us are open to people connecting with us and asking, any of these questions. So please,
absolutely,
contact us and ask us about how you go and find an innovational interview. We can help you with that.
Absolutely.
I had no idea how to do it either.
Yeah.
So definitely, I mean, those are just really a big deal to get started and just, learn what you don't know. Right.
Yeah.
So you're working through that process. You're building up those meaningful connections, which we could probably do another whole show on that.
Yeah.
What that really means. I will mention just really quick, listen, you've got to fight the algorithm, which really on LinkedIn, the key to fighting the algorithm is just consistent connection and engagement.
Yep.
So with those that you want to continue to engage with, so you can have 1,000 connections, but if there's 20 people that really mean a lot to you, then you need to focus on those 20, commenting on their stuff, quality comments, all those types of things. So that will help your algorithm, that will help feed your feed, in a good way, and keep those really important people to you, in there.
Absolutely.
So you're working on those things, and now you're probably at the point of, man, well, what do I want to do?
Yeah.
And, how'd you kind of come up with that? And then when did you hear about a Skill Bridge program? What is Skill Bridge program?
Yeah. So when I was thinking about what do I want to be when I grow up, right? So
right.
I really, I knew I had something to offer. I'd spent over 20 years, in the security and protection field as a military police officer. So, I felt like I could do something with that. And so, but at the same time, initially, I was trying to look for things that might be outside the government, because I wanted to try something in that realm and maybe in the civilian world outside the government. Not that I was opposed to working in the government, but I wanted to see if I could try my hand at that.
Sure.
And so I kind of took a two-pronged approach. I looked at opportunities within my career field, and my traditional career field, and then opportunities outside the career field. And so throughout the transition assistance 5-day course that you have to sit through, somebody mentioned these career skills programs, and one of which is Skill Bridge. I'm like, what's that? And so they talked about these opportunities that are out there where you can spend up to 12 weeks in an internship with any number of companies across the spectrum, of different career fields, basically working with them, and you're still getting paid, by the military. It's essentially, it's a free internship for the organization, but it's a mutual benefit where, the organization benefits by you being there and learning how you operate, kind of teaching you how about their business and what they do. And at the same time, for the individual, it helps you to identify, a possibility that, hey, this might be something I'm willing to do. And one of the things that really hit me when they were talking about this program was over 96% of people, at least at that time, who participate are offered employment by the same organization. I'm like, wow. I need to take advantage of this. It was something that they said you could participate within 6 months of separation, but you got to get command approval to do it. And so I knew up front, if I didn't know anything about this, my supervisory chain certainly doesn't know anything about what this is. So I now need to come up with a plan on how I'm going to educate them, get some buy-in, and enable them to allow me to do this, right? So I looked at opportunities, a SkillBridge opportunity, actually in the financial industry, because in a company that was connected to military families. I wanted to try to maintain some connection with the military if I could, even if I wasn't going to work in the government. So I did a 12-week internship with a company in the financial industry. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Now I was going to say, so I had a great time, a lot of great people there. I was learning a whole lot. I really enjoyed the culture. I was taking the licensing exams that you have to take to work in that particular industry, and I was passing. And then I got about 2/3 of the way through, and I realized, that I kind of had like an uneasy feeling about it. I was like, I kind of liked doing this at first, but I don't know if this is a fit for me. I knew I was a fit for them, because when I approached them, or actually when they approached me and they said, "Hey, do you want to try this out?" They offered me the internship and a job on the spot, like right
Wow.
before I started. Of course, contingent on the fact that if I pass all the licensing exams. So I'm like, okay, great, I got this in the bag. This is ready to go. But as soon as I got about 2/3 of the way through, I just felt like something wasn't right for me. It was nothing on the organization. It was nothing on the people. It was just the experience of that industry. There was just something about working in that industry that just didn't appeal to me towards the end. And that's the great thing about these skill bridges is these organizations are not obligated to offer you a job, but you're also not obligated to take one if they do. And I'm actually so thankful I went through the experience, because if I hadn't, I would have always thought, what if? What if I hadn't done this? If I hadn't done that and I'm working in the job I am now, like, man, I wish I'd have done that. Maybe that could have been the career for me, but I'm glad that I discovered that it wasn't.
Yeah, that's a lot of really important things right there. And that the 96% are offered jobs, and almost anybody that I've talked to, and Christian Quadras was one I had on the show, a couple months ago. He got offered a job and he's working with the company and he loves it, doing great things.
Yeah.
It's a really incredible opportunity. I mean, worst comes to worst, you got a job, right? And you can
absolutely
figure it out. So it's amazing.
And these companies are looking for military folks with the kind of skill sets that we've obtained over the course of a career. Somebody that I got to know at Fort Eustis on my last assignment there. That's kind of how I learned about SkillBridge, because he was towards the tail end of his internship with a major energy company here in the state, and was talking about the benefits of it and what he learned. And by the end of it, he was interning for, I think, as a supply chain specialist or something, a supply chain transportation specialist or something like that. By the end of his internship, they offered him the same job, but at the senior position, because of what he brought to the table, as a former, as a military veteran who's learned all the soft skills and the hard skills that he learned over the course of a career. I mean, it's just, companies just get so much benefit out of harvesting that talent, across the military spectrum. It's great.
It really is. And really that's, we talk about translating our skills and showing value.
Yes.
So that's what we've got to be better at. And then those two things, not that there's not 10 others, but those two things, when we're coming out, we've got to translate those to civilian speak, and then we've got to show them value, because you and I know that we have value.
Absolutely.
They think we do.
Yeah.
But they need to know it. So we've got to do better at showing them. And there's, you and I can help others. There's many of our teammates and connections and friends on LinkedIn that can also help, those people. And there's a lot of different organizations. Hiring Our Heroes is one of them that are a lot of that are out there that really do a good job. So I want to focus on one aspect that you talked about and let's talk about the timeline of the 5-day course. And this is really important for people to understand. So your 5-day course, that's when you first heard about Career Skills Program. Yeah. And here is why it's important to get that 5-day course done at least by the 12-month mark.
Yeah.
from your separation date. And I do also want to remind people, so there's two dates. There's your actual separation date, which is your retirement date, and your terminal leave start date.
That's right.
So, and everything is based on your separation date. So when you hear, David, when you talked about the 6-month mark, 12 months, that's the date that you're allowed to do these things.
That's right.
So if you take that 5-day course and you're, within 3 months of starting your terminal leave or 2 months starting your terminal leave, it potentially could be too late.
It could.
I don't want to say it would be. I mean, you're right. I mean, like, and I'm really I'm not trying to scare anybody. I'm just trying to say, like, that's how important it is, because you and I both understand how long it takes to kind of get your chain of command on board.
Yeah.
And get through the paperwork, the process, and get it approved, and also to find one.
Yeah. But there's resources out there to help with that too.
Yes, absolutely. How did you find the company that you work with?
So coincidentally, I was at one of those job fairs that they do on post.
Right.
And a lot of installations do this, right? You go in and the list of companies that are going to be there before you show up, and they have reps at all these different tables. And the one that I ended up doing the internship just happened to be one of the companies that was there. And I had no intention of doing anything with them whatsoever, but I knew the rep who was there representing this particular company, I had already known from a previous business relationship.
Networking.
Exactly. So we just started talking, and it was like, hey, why don't you come in and let's have a discussion? And I said, yeah, why not? So I came in, sat down with the district supervisor, basically. And he's like, look, I'm going to tell you right up front, we want guys like you. We want military folks, particularly with your skill set. And the other thing that attracted me to that too is because 4 out of 5 people that work for this company are former military individuals with no financial background, right? They train you on all that stuff. That's the beauty of doing the internship, is you learn all that stuff as you go through. And then once you come on board, you get more training. So, I mean, you're set up well for success. But that's kind of how I got linked in with this particular company. Is it just kind of happenstance? But there are organizations at these different events that can help connect you with some of these opportunities as well. State veterans departments of veteran services, or like you said, hiring our heroes, and other things that are out there that can help connect people to those same opportunities. And also just talking to people who've been in, who've done it too, and can kind of talk you through it.
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of this just keeps coming back to talking to people, talking to people and networking, and go to the job fair and just talk to all of them. It doesn't mean you're going to go work there, or just talk to all of them. And then, I'm just going to bring people back to the LinkedIn, like connect and engage and, talk to people. There was somebody that, I was potentially going to do a skill bridge through hiring our heroes, and they are a cohort based, which is a little bit, can be challenging depending on people's timeline. And this is why, again, I want to reiterate, starting early enough so that you can kind of figure out some of these challenges. For example, so my 180-day mark was February 2nd, 2021, but their cohort started January 17th.
Yeah.
They were not willing to do any kind of waiver or anything because they said they could get in trouble by DOD.
Yeah. Definitely.
And I'm like, come on. But there was a particular recruiter out there that I had already talked to. And actually I had done an informational interview with her, and then she contacted and says, hey, I don't see you on the list for this cohort, and we want you. So what's the deal? And then we talked and connected, and I said, I can't do it through them, but I can do it through you, but I'm not going to do it at this time. But that doesn't matter at this point. What matters is you've got to understand your timelines, and then, be involved in networking and connect to people. And then, they'll reach out to you if not,
like when I was in that 18-month window, I talked to somebody who was at the end of his transition, and he provided me with his 1-year calendar, day by day calendar of how he transitioned. And I said, hey, can I steal this from you? because this is awesome. And I mean, he had planned out his terminal leave was going to start here to here. His internship was going to start here to here, interviews, terminal leave, permissive TDY, all that stuff. So 100%. That's why you need that time to plan out as far in advance. That's why I say if you're going to retire, you need to start 2 years in advance. If you're not retiring, or if you're just going to ETS, you can start 2 years out, or you can start less than that, but you need at least 12 months. And really, the new law that took effect last year, I think it was last year, it now requires you to start the transition process at least a year in advance.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the minimum I think you need, but you definitely need to plan way far in advance. The SkillBridge internship for me, I mean, any SkillBridge internship, that's your place of duty. So you don't necessarily need to burn your terminal leave to do it. That's why that planning aspect is super important and getting started as early as possible.
Absolutely. So your connection that offered you that day by day calendar, yeah. I had a friend, a LinkedIn connection that did the same thing for me.
Yeah.
Said, hey, here is, I mean, everything I've done. Here's my documents. Here's how I've really scheduled everything. I didn't copy it, one for one, but I looked at it and I used it to identify, my own schedule and my own, routine. And I was like, oh my gosh, it was like invaluable, that thing.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And I'm willing to share the same thing with others. You're willing to share the same thing with others.
Absolutely.
And there's many more just like us. And, the best way to find us is LinkedIn, I know. And we keep talking about that, but it is so important. And I don't know a whole lot of people on there. I think I have maybe around 1,000 connections, but I probably have 20 meaningful ones, right?
Yeah.
The point is, if you ask me a question and I don't know it, I probably can point you in the right direction to find it.
Oh yeah.
That's the key to it, to me.
Definitely.
So we've got to get started early. We've got to get and forget your rank. Like, listen, junior soldiers, there's all kinds of opportunities for you as well. These aren't just for senior enlisted and officers. There's plenty of SkillBridge opportunities for everybody, depending on what your skill set is. So absolutely I don't want junior soldiers to get, in that mind frame, oh, it's not for me. This is only for officers or senior enlisted. And no, it's for everybody.
Absolutely.
And there's lots of organizations that can help you write your resume, at least get your base resume done. Maybe the most important career transition program I participated in was 4-Block.
Okay.
Incredible. It's a semester based, and I'm thankful it was virtual because it was hosted by each city. And I was in the Atlanta cohort because that's where I was coming to. But at the same time, if it wasn't virtual, I don't know how I could have attended because it was every Thursday from 6 to 9. But they have, stuff all over the country, cohorts in major cities. Every day that they have classes, say 6 to 9, it's a company comes in with veterans that work there and talk about their transition, talking about the culture of the company. Yeah. The instructors of the group are talking about resumes and helping you write your resume, informational interviews, all of those things. And it's like a 12-week course.
Oh man, that's awesome.
Incredible. I mean, talking UPS, Uber, Coke, Truist, incredible companies. Wow. That you want to talk about connections. And these people were just like you and me saying, hey, my DMs are open. Connect me on LinkedIn. Here's my email. Like, I want you because we want your skill set, just like you were saying.
Yeah.
So absolutely. Everybody, start connecting, start talking, be the dumbest one in the room, ask a million questions, and you're going to be, set up for success. And then the other part that we really haven't talked about at all, that there's a ton of help out there too, is the VA.
Yeah.
Doing your disability and when you can file for it and all those things. There is so much more help outside of that 5-day class that we had to take.
Yeah. And, you talk about the VA. You'll get, when you go through the TAP class or whatever transition assistance program was in your service, they'll touch very, very briefly on some of these things. And then it's on you to go out and find out more about it, and one of the most important aspects of the transition is filing your VA disability claim, and just kind of learning how that process works. Working with someone who can help you, with like I use somebody in a veteran service organization to help me put my claim packet together and submit it on my behalf. And so, otherwise I would have had to do it myself. And so it's just learning about, the free resources that are out there. And that's part of it too. You have these certified individuals who can help put your claim together and work with you, on a regular basis to get that submitted. So huge benefit.
Absolutely. So I did the same. I used Disabled American Veterans Association, but same thing. And they did a fantastic job. All free, like you said.
Yeah.
They do everything for you and, helped file the claim. And so just so people understand, how valuable it was, I retired August 1st and I received my ratings on August 19th. So it can happen. And I know there's some stories where it takes a while, but and I did complete my application April 22nd was when I was my last CMP exam.
Yeah.
And everything went in, and then I got my ratings the 19th. So it can happen, but it was a lot of work to get to that point. And, and I had no idea what to do. We're afraid of the VA, right? It's this big, ugly monster, right? That people say doesn't care about you, and it's going to be too hard to deal with and mess with. Like, listen, they do care. They're overwhelmed, like most of our other government agencies.
Yeah.
So find those people that can help you navigate that big old monster.
Yeah.
And then let you focus on your other stuff.
We talk about timelines and the importance of planning ahead. Filing your VA claim is a perfect example of that, because, the first opportunity that you have to file is 6 months from separation, in order to be considered in what they call the benefits delivery at discharge program, which theoretically means that if you submit between 90 days and 180 days of separation, theoretically you should have your ratings by the time you retire. Now with COVID, there's some challenges there, but if you're outside that window, if you're like 89 days or less, you're going to be waiting a while.
Yeah, that's very well said. So in that scenario, mine was 18 days late. I'll take that.
Yeah,
I'll take that any day. So, right. I'm not upset about it. I'm good, and it was what I expected too, like, because of all the work I had done, with my medical records and identifying all of the things that I thought, were stuff, and they accepted, I think, most of the ones that I listed. And then they added some that I didn't even list that they found in my medical records. But timelines are important, critical. And, so much of what we've talked about tonight is that networking and talking to people, asking all those questions and understanding and knowing those timelines is so important.
Oh yeah.
And then the VA thing, like, listen, every single veteran, every person that has served, you need to apply, file a claim, period. I don't care if you did 1 year, 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, 20. Apply. It doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't mean you have any disabilities. Apply. Just put it in there and then let them figure it out, and then if in case something happens later on, you have it documented. And don't wait till later to do it. Just do it now. So it's definitely one of my big things when I talk to people, like when I ask, what is your timeline? Have you filed your VA claim yet?
Yeah. Oh, I haven't
like,
thought about it. I talked to somebody a couple months ago about that. Like, I'm like 6 months out from separation. I haven't thought about it. I'm like, you need to think about it, because, and making sure all your stuff is documented ahead of time. And just, a lot of us, over the years have maybe thought, well, I don't need to go see the doctor, but if you got a condition or something's wrong, you need to get it documented, because that's going to be important down the road. It's important for you, important for your family, and potential compensation after you leave. So
it really is. It's important. And 3 people, I was just thinking, 3 friends of mine that I know right now off the top of my head did not even start a claim until after they were out and working.
Wow.
And they were just like, well, all the excuses you've heard, right?
Yeah.
And, so of course, once they started to file, then it was like 10 months later, they got their ratings.
Yep.
And, one of them was 100%. I said,
Yeah.
well, man, think about all that money. I mean, again, I know we got back pay, but there's
Yeah.
so many other extraneous benefits that come with certain ratings that's
Yeah.
important to your family. Like you just said, selfless service. It's not about you.
Yeah. And if if you have a rating of a certain level too, like you said, those extra benefits, you may be able to get free education benefits for you and your family, not just through the federal government, but also through your state.
Right.
So, I mean, these are some of the things that people just don't realize until they start looking into it, and then start thinking about that kind of stuff. But I mean, it's so important, which again goes back to, taking as much time as you possibly can to start your process and really own your transition.
Yeah, absolutely. You probably know him, Herb Thompson.
Yeah.
Okay. He may be famous by now. I don't know. But his book was the first one that I read, Transition Mission, and,
Yep.
own your journey. Right. I mean, you just
Absolutely.
said it, own your transition. I love it. It's one of my favorite phrases. I mean, own it, take responsibility,
Yep.
get after it, ask all those questions you don't know,
Yeah.
and you will have a successful transition. And then, be a lot better for yourself and your family for sure. So,
Oh, absolutely.
Well, all right. So as we wrap this up, man, so many good lessons and tips and resources, tonight. But if you had to say the top 3 resources, what would be your top 3 resources to somebody that's in 12 months out?
Top 3 resources, for anything like certifications or anything.
Anything.
Man. Top 3 resources. Number 1, these are in no particular order, but just the first one that comes to mind. First one is the VA. The VA is important when it comes to your benefits after you leave, such as your, submitting your disability claim, of course, your education benefits. Most everybody has access to post 9/11 GI Bill for education, whether it's for yourself or if you transferred benefits to somebody else. Your home guarantee loans, all different kinds of things from the VA that you need to take a look at, and really start taking a look at that now. There's a lot of things that you can do well outside of your transition window now, and this is one of them. It's just learning about these things that the VA provides. The other thing I'll say about the VA too is they have a program that they recently started within the last couple of years called the VA Solid Start Program, where you can expect a phone call from somebody from the VA 3 times within your first year of separation. And really, the goal for that is to ensure that you have the resources that you need. If you have any questions about medical, financial, education, whatever it is the VA can provide. I've been called 3 times already by VA Solid Start, and it's been invaluable because I've had lots of questions about other things that I didn't know about before I left, and they really helped me. The counselor that called me already knew who I was familiar with my file, and it really kind of helped start the conversation. So that's one is the VA. The second one, of course, is anything under the Career Skills Program umbrella, SkillBridge being one. With internships and fellowships. There are other programs out there, such as Onward to Opportunity, which is one underneath, I think it's the Syracuse University Institute for Military and Families or something like that.
Yep.
But Onward to Opportunity. And Onward to Opportunity is another career skills program where you can obtain industry certifications at no charge in a variety of different things, information technology, program management, professional, a whole bunch of different things. And some of those study materials you already have access to now. For example, like if you're an Army soldier, you already have access through the Army's education program and through all their education software, things for like the project management professional certification. The study materials are already there. So that's number 2. Number 3, Resources, I would say, if you want to get linked up with some kind of organization outside of the government, perhaps if you're looking for employment in the civilian sector, you don't really know where to start. There's a lot of tools out there like Vets to Industry or Veterati or American Corporate Partners, things like that, that can connect you with some of these organizations and career fields that are out there. And kind of, I'll say like a 3A or a 3 alpha is any kind of organization or association that you may belong to or want to belong to that offers a mentorship program. Mentorship programs can be very important, particularly when it comes to the networking piece, because they can introduce you to networks out there that you may not have had access to right off the street. And also kind of help provide you guidance on navigating your way through the job market and learning how to interview and what questions to ask and learning about a particular industry and all those kinds of things. So I've taken advantage of the mentorship program myself through an association that I belong to. And for me, it's been invaluable. I highly recommend it. So off the top of my head, those are the top 3+ things that I would probably say for people to take advantage of and learn more about.
I mean, those are awesome. Those are really awesome. And in addition to all the things we've already discussed in the show.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put some of those things on the links on the blog post for the show. And so Vets to Industry is a really big resource that I believe in. Brian Narrington, I had him on. He was my very first military transition show.
Yeah.
I brought him on. So that was really exciting. He's so passionate about helping veterans, and they are the resource of resources. Like you go there and you can connect to people and they will just find you whatever it is you need. And which is just really, really incredible. But I really love what you said about the VA, because, we kind of mentioned earlier, people are afraid of the VA. It's, it has a negative reputation, but they're getting a lot better. And there's so many resources, and, it's not just their responsibility to reach out to us. We've got to do the work too, to get in there and find out what they can do. But I love the Solid Start program. I got the email the other day and told me about it and to expect a call. So I'm excited about that. And I'm excited to hear that you've already gotten your 3 calls, which is really a big deal.
Super impressed. Like you, I had heard so many derogatory things about the VA from others who had transitioned from, years past.
Mm-hmm.
But my own personal experience and talking to others who have just recently transitioned, a totally different experience from what I had heard about in the past. So VA is great so far. No complaints from me.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I've got my wife's uncle, I'm not sure what that, my uncle-in-law, anyway, Vietnam veteran, never filed a disability claim. I'm helping him get connected with the DAV, and
that's awesome.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. So, and then another friend of mine who retired guard, did some active duty time, but he's been out for 10 years. And he's got some other issues, and he's never filed one. And so I'm helping him as well. So yeah, absolutely. VA's there to help, and a great resource.
Man. I commend you for doing that too, Jason. I mean, that's amazing. And some people may just be apprehensive about doing it, or they just don't know where to start,
Both. You nailed it. It's the apprehensive, and then where do I start? And especially, my wife's uncle, I think he's late 60s, early 70s, not overly confident with the technology. So where does he start? So I was able to, I wrote up the email and I said, here, click on this link. Here's the phone number to the DAV, call them direct. And then essentially they will just walk you through everything. But so it's it's good stuff. Those are some great resources and tips. And so is there anything that maybe we haven't covered, maybe with your your position now with your liaison, your volunteer positions you wanted to mention, or anything else you would just want to mention before we go to the listeners?
Really, just, the main thing, I'll hit on the association piece in a second, but the main thing I would say is start early. I mean, that's the one through line for all of this. The common theme is to start early. I mean, that's going to make the huge difference in having a successful transition or not. The association piece I mentioned, I belong to an association called ASIS International. It's the world's largest association for security professionals. And really the association itself, it really leads the security industry and drives change, helps develop guidelines and standards, provides education, and also certifications. And so when I mentioned way back at the beginning of the show about my two-pronged approach about looking for things inside my career field, one of those things was basically reestablishing my membership with this association, because I had it long ago, in order to obtain a certification through them, which I was able to ultimately do. I still keep it, and I intend to keep it and maintain it because I worked hard to get it. But the other thing that this association does, as does others like it, they provide other opportunities for you to network. They provide those mentorship opportunities that I mentioned too. So, I mean, all of these things can be just so invaluable. And within this association, that I belong to, there's a number of subject area communities. One of them is the military liaison community, on which I hold a volunteer leadership position. And our main purpose is to provide the education and information that veterans need as they transition from the military into another career, and particularly into security careers. But we also provide general information that anybody can use. So that's just one of the things that I try to do coming on the back end of my transition, to try to help others, because there was just so much that I had to do discovery learning when I went through my process. And I'm like, at the end of this, I'm like, I need to try to at least pass on my lessons learned to others. I'm not a subject matter expert, but if I can at least provide a couple of nuggets of information that people can take with them and help, and hopefully make their transition easier, then that's the reward that I get, because I know what I experienced. You experienced the same thing. Anything that we can do to help others learn more about transition and make it easier, that's really what I'm after. So,
yeah, that's awesome. I mean, and I, like we said, I agree with, just if there's anything I can do to help somebody, especially while it's fresh in my mind, and yours, 10 years from now, so many things could change. So while it's fresh for me, I definitely just want to keep sharing that information as you do, which is amazing. So those professional organizations are important. Mm-hmm. I agree with you too. And starting early, just really, really powerful tips and for the veterans out there and the service members, and don't feel guilty for starting. Don't feel guilty for owning your transition. It doesn't mean you don't show up to work and you don't do your job.
Right.
And I think maybe that could be another show right there, is what does it mean when we say starting your transition at 12 months and, getting that day-to-day list that you got from a friend.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
the one that I got, like, that's, we can kind of share that with people and be like, hey, it's not, you don't go to work every day and you can still contribute to the team, but there's things that you can start doing. So it's really, really important. I'm really excited. I mean, about this show. I love, sharing all this information and helping others. And, so much of the lessons you learned, I learned too the hard way. Well, I say hard way, because I just didn't know. But I did feel like I learned in enough time to make an impact on my own transition, which was good. And I think you did too. You got through the skill bridge and you learned, that the company wasn't for you, but so on and so forth. So I think it was good. Good opportunity. And if we can continue to, spread the word and just, help our teammates out there, like, listen, we'll get you through it. And we can help you have a positive transition so that you're set up for success.
I'm so glad you got a platform like this, where you can, tell your story, and other people can as well, and try to provide that reach to someone out there who might be thinking about it, who might not know where to start. So I commend you for what you're doing, Jason. This is awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. I had no idea 8 months ago what this was going to be, but I'm enjoying it. It's exciting. Every show I get to record, it's really fun for me. I love sharing these stories and not just the stories in 20 years, but the transition stories to help other people.
Yeah.
I love it, and I'm enjoying this platform and excited to see where it goes for sure.
I wish you all the best of luck. I mean, it's great. This is amazing.
Thanks. I appreciate it. Well, all right. We will wrap this up. So Dave, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing all this stuff with our listeners. I know it's going to help at least one. I have a feeling it's going to help more than that. But we will rest easier at night knowing that we're doing our part to help our teammates out there. There's people that care about you.
Hey, thanks, Jason. I really appreciate it. Really appreciate the time, and look forward to hearing more of your podcasts moving forward as well.
Absolutely. And thank you for your time, because hey, time is valuable, especially when we got our families and kids. So thank you so much for your time.
Glad to do it.
All right. Hey, thanks everybody for tuning in for another great episode of Miller's Military Moments. Bring in unfiltered stories from real military members from across the globe, with a transition tips and resources today with Dave Martin. I will have all of his contact information that he says you can have on my website and on the blog post, so that you can connect to him and ask him any questions that you need as far as transitioning or anything else. I'm sure he will help you out. So check out, millersmilitarymoments.com. On the blog post, you'll see the episode and the links. And then of course, resources will have some of these veteran resources on that page as well. So don't forget to check that out. But thanks again for everybody tuning in. Thanks for everybody's support out there, listening, for, really encouraging me and helping me, giving me the confidence to continue to do this and grow this show. I'm excited to where we're going, and, all the possibilities and all the veterans that we can reach out to and help. So thanks everybody. Check out the website, check out the podcast. And if you have any questions, concerns, anything, send me a DM, and, my DMs are always open, especially to veterans, to help you out in any way out there. Stay safe, everybody. And as always, be kind, be compassionate, and be you. Until next time, peace.